My name is Emiliano Casiano, and I am gay. Immediately after the SCOTUS ruling of marriage equality, 4th Street in Austin was insane. And I was just surrounded by people who had, for the first time, almost the exact same feeling of satisfaction, gratitude that I had. It was funny to see coworkers who I'd never hang out with out having the time of their lives. It was funny seeing my boss getting wild. It was fun just waiting in line outside of the clubs, but just being across from one of my best friends who was having a hard time that summer that I didn't expect to see, and just being there and looking at her and seeing her smile and laugh more than I'd ever seen her before. I couldn't describe it. There were never had in my life have there been so many periods that weren't filled with words, just laughter and smiles and hugs. It was beautiful. I remember when I was at a friend's house, we were having a few drinks and we decided to go over to the 7-Eleven that was across the street, get some snacks, whatever, and see out on my peripheral there were two guys sitting just in the parking lot. We heard some weird, like, generic racist line, like, go back to your country or something like that. That struck us as odd, but we just ignored it and kept going, moving inside. My friend bought a banana. Apparently he'd been listening to them a little bit more than I was. I walk outside the 7-Eleven and I noticed that the two individuals that were verbally harassing us were actually students. I had dealt with subtle racism and casual racism and like just little microaggressions and prejudices that seep through normal conversation or a heated debate in class, but I never had somebody say something so ridiculous as go back to your own country. And I just treated it like they were being assholes for the sake of being assholes. We just ignored this and kept walking. They stood up and they tried to confront us. We were drinking, but we weren't at their level of drunk. For whatever reason, the thing that made us really stop was when they called us faggots. My friend's straight. He could tell that was like crossing a line. Not to say that an act of homophobia is worse than an act of racism, but it was the first time in their rant, I don't know what you'd call it, that they actually used a slur. And so my friend, who has much more of imposing stature than I do, walked up to them and they sized him up and realized that it would be a problem if they did actually get into a physical altercation with the two of us. Finally, he just threw the banana at them and then we walked away. It was funny. It was a little bit too aggressive, but it was simple, but it was a friend sticking up for me. In the moment, it didn't feel too big. It didn't feel like we just had been attacked. I was just completely comforted by somebody who was willing to stand by me, and they've done it before. They've done it since then. My friend drunkenly throwing a banana at two racist homophobes outside of 7-Eleven was a time that I felt loved. About 2 years ago, I went to Chicago to visit a friend of mine. He decided to introduce me to some fellow queer Latino playwrights. Just hearing their stories and how they supported each other, I think that was incredibly inspiring. I've been surrounded by other queer artists, I've been surrounded by other Latinx artists, but just to see that small little group of writers, some of whom were moderately successful and had their stuff produced, some of whom had never had anybody outside of that room read it, but just giving them all of the love and the attention and the advice and the support that they deserved was really powerful. I think that the biggest takeaway from all of this is to stop ignoring the existence of intersectionality. Stop talking over your trans friend of color because you feel like you know how they should feel, because you feel like the hate you've experienced in your life, the hardship, is equal to or greater than theirs. I think that not only is that obviously divisive, it's toxic, it's probably the worst thing we can do. Is compare our struggles instead of sharing our experiences and sharing as much, as cliche as it sounds, love as we possibly can. Because for some people, all it takes is a really supportive teacher to kind of be a good role model for you, and you can go out to the hallways of your high school, your middle school, or your college and just be yourself, knowing that that one role model is doing it, so why can't you? But that's not the same for everybody. Some people that role model doesn't exist. There's some, believe it or not, those of us who are stuck in our Huffington Post bubble, our liberal shield, where we just regurgitate these thoughts and ideas that are pleasing to us, even if they're not most realistic. There is a gay kid somewhere, or a young trans individual somewhere in a remote place in one of those states that you roll your eyes every time you hear the name of, who doesn't know who RuPaul is, isn't allowed to watch Ellen, who isn't reminded every day via Facebook just how much these last 8 years have been under Obama. And the reason why I say don't forget intersectionality is because there are so many intricate and complicated ways that somebody's experience can be changed based on the color of their skin, based on their class. No matter how much you put out the hashtag it gets better, there are people alive right now that it didn't get better for. And those are the people that you should be fighting for right now, that you shouldn't speak for or just speak about. Those are the people you should seek out and find and use whatever ounce of privilege you have, however minuscule, even if it doesn't feel like it's enough to share. Go out and find the person who has less and give something to them. Give them a voice, give them a chance to talk, maybe a place to stay if you can, and give them hope.